Hey everyone, what's going on? Christopher, the video game historian, finally back after my amazing wedding a few weeks ago with a new video on the road to Battlefield 5 weapon skins. These skins, which were released for the Lewis gun, Gewehr M95, Selbstlader M1916, and the MP18, were rewards given to us by DICE for completing various challenges over the course of the last few months leading up to the new game in November. With Battlefield 5 approaching quickly, I thought I would take the time to go over the Bloodtub, Osterschlacht, Blutigen April, and Siegfriedstellung skins in Battlefield 1. The first skin for this video is the Bloodtub skin for the Lewis gun. This was the very first skin that we were awarded during the Road to Battlefield 5 challenges, and this skin is a reference to not only a book of the same name written by Jonathan Walker, but also to the Bloody Battle of Arras during the Battle of Arras. This battle would earn its nickname as the Bloodtub and Bloody Arras due to the high amount of loss and death that the Australians suffered trying to take a section of the Hindenburg Line at Arras. The Australian forces, under the command of General Gough, would reach the line on April 9th, just as the British were preparing to launch their own offensive. Hearing about this, Gough proposed to launch his own attack on the line at Arras and Quéant. The plan would be to have artillery shell the barbed wire, paving the way for the infantry to attack. Though due to this being a last-minute attack, there was no time for artillery to get into position, and as such, tanks were brought in instead. When the attacks launched on April 11th, 4 Anzac divisions were supported by 11 tanks with inexperienced crews, which did nothing to support the infantry attacks. Immediately after launching the offensive, the Australian soldiers were cut down by heavy machine gun fire. Those who were lucky enough to make it into the trenches were either killed or captured after trying to secure them. After 8 hours of fighting, out of 3,000 soldiers, 2,229 were killed, and the rest captured as prisoners. A second attack would be launched on May 3rd at Arras, but 2 would end up being a repeated disaster, with an additional 7,000 Australian soldiers being killed with no measure of success to show for their sacrifice. The second skin for this video, as well as was rewarded to us in the Road to Battlefield 5 challenges, is the Osher Shock skin for the Gewehr M95, and just like the Bloodtub, also refers to the Battle of Arras. In fact, the Osterschlacht is the German word for the battle. Now this battle would take place from April 9th to May 16th, 1917, launching on the back of General Nivelle's offensive at the Chemin des Dames Ridge. The British were to launch their offensive first, just days before the French. However, there was a slight issue. The salient that the British were supposed to attack was no longer there, due to the Germans retreating back behind the Hindenburg Line. Despite this, the attack was still planned to be launched, however unfortunately would not be a success. Out of the 3 Scarpe battles, Bullecourt, Vimy Ridge, and Arleux, only Vimy Ridge was a successful attack, as the Canadians were able to not only push the Germans back, but also secured their capture of the ridge. This would be the only major success during this offensive, as the death toll for this battle would be the largest of any British conflict in the war. Due to the heavy losses incurred by the Australians, the battle would earn the nickname the Bloodtub and Bloody Arras. The Blutigen April skin for the Selbstlader M1916 was the third skin we were awarded for use in Battlefield 5, and when translated into English, the name simply means Bloody April. Like the rest of these skins, this is a reference to Arras, but not so much the ground battle. Instead, this skin is in reference to the aerial fighting that occurred during Arras and the devastation the Germans wrought on the British. Despite aerial combat still being in its infancy during the war, technology to make aircrafts deadlier and deadlier was advancing quickly, with the Germans perfecting a French design of allowing machine guns to fire forward through an aircraft's propeller in 1917, and had adopted it on their aircrafts by then. By April of 1917, when the battle had begun, the Germans had just adopted the latest type of aircraft for use, the Albatros D3, while the British RFC and RNAS were still using old, outdated aircrafts. Despite the technological disadvantage, the British still believed that they could defeat the Germans through sheer numbers alone, as they had about 385 fighters compared to their Germans' 114. Even though the British had the advantage nearly 3-1, they were still outmatched by the Germans and suffered heavy losses. Of that number, 245 were destroyed, with the average lifespan of their pilots being around 17.5 hours. One of the pilots who fought in this battle for the Germans and helped wreak so much havoc on the British was none other than the Baron Erich von Richthofen, who would earn his Red Baron nickname during this battle. Finally, the last skin for this video is the Siegfriedstellung skin for the MP18, which was also the last skin we received during the Battlefield 5 challenges. This skin is in reference to the Hindenburg Line, which was built between 1916 and 1917, stretching from Arras to just outside of Soissons. Due to the Germans losing the Battle of the Somme in 1916, plans were drawn up to construct a defensive line where the soldiers could withdraw to that could provide cover and give the Germans a position to repel incoming British and French offensives on that line. Construction would begin in September 1916 after the Battle of Verdun forced the Germans on the defensive after suffering great losses during this one attack. The Brusilov offensive in the east also contributed to the line's construction, as the Germans were forced to send troops to Galicia in order to assist their Austro-Hungarian allies, which stretched their ranks even more on the Western Front. Around 376,000 men of the German reserves, Russian prisoners, and civilians managed to dig the trench and fortify it within the 4 months it took to complete the project. It was fortified with barbed wire, pillboxes, bunkers, machine gun nests, artillery, and anti-tank ditches. Barbed wire was along the frontline positions, which were placed in a way to create a funnel that would force Allied troops into deadly areas. Between the frontline positions and the first line of trenches, there was about a mile to the rear and out of the way of enemy artillery and mortars. In the event of an attack, the Germans would leave their frontline positions and fall back to their actual line of defense. The nature of this line would allow the Germans to simply lure the Allies further and further into a killing zone. Several attacks were made on this line, but it wouldn't be until September 1918 that the Allies were able to finally break through it during their 100 days offensive. Anyway, that's all I have for this week's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed this first one after my wedding, and if so, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and drop your comments down below. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media with Twitter and Facebook, and until next time, I'll see you all on the battlefield.